One. Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. As always, I start with a question, and this one, again, just is going to get you right at the beginning. And you got to be honest with yourself, okay? You don't have to be honest with me. You don't have to be honest with my guests. But the question is your growth stuck in neutral right now? And if you feel at all that your growth for your business is not where you want it to be, then you're going to definitely want to hang out and listen to today's episode. So I'm honored to be hanging out with Austin LaRoche. He is the CEO at Attack Interactive in the great state of California. How are you today, my friend?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Absolutely. So I gotta say, what it's ATAK for those that are listening. ATAK is Attack Interactive. Fill us in on, first of all, what is Attack Interactive?
All right. Attack Interactive is a digital marketing agency, and Attack, ATAK, is really an acronym for our core values: accountable, tenacious, agile, and kind. It's how we try and work with all of our clients, right? We want to make sure that at any point we are completely accountable to the results of everything that we're doing. We want to attack each account with a lot of tenacity. We want to be agile because we all know things don't always go exactly to plan, and we want to do it with a smile on our face. And we want to be the people that you want to work with. And so we pride ourselves on being kind as well. And we essentially work with companies to help them with their revenue operations engine, right? We help build the engine, we help optimize the engine, we help get the right technology to make the engine run. But anything that requires an increase in revenue, marketing, sales, customer success, we come in and we help fill in the gaps.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think that's a big blind spot. And I kind of want to start there, Austin. When you talk to people, do you get a lot of people that are saying, "Oh, my growth is fine. I'm happy with my growth." Do you get a lot of people that aren't really sure maybe what their growth should be? Is growth a big, are they very clear on their growth, or do you find a lot of times people are just kind of nebulous when it comes to talking about growth?
When I talk about our clients and the people that we work with on the client side, I actually call them our champions. And so our champions are very they differ. So on the smaller side, our champion can be a CEO, and I think a CEO typically is not growing as fast as they want to. Whereas when it's somebody who's maybe it's a chief marketing officer, a director of marketing, director of sales, somebody like that, then essentially some sort of growth plan with numbers is attached, and there's a quota, and they're terrified about not being able to hit that quota, and so they
Sure.
come to us to see where we can help.
Wow. Well, and so I'm glad that people are aware because maybe it's a Midwest thing, but boy, I tell you what, it's one of those things, Austin, where people are just, they're fine. I'm fine. I'm happy with where I'm at. And as you dig a little deeper, then it's like, well, we can always do better. 5% growth is sales growth, but what about margin growth? Well, they're less clear about that. So, I mean, growth is growth, but I mean, if my weeds are growing in my garden, that's really not success. So, are you pretty intentional with your attack model as far as what I want to grow, whether it's personally, professionally, financially? Are there a lot of areas that I can grow?
Yeah, my thing with growth is I want to be very, I want my goals to be very smart, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, right? I want to
Yep.
know to the number. So, like when we talk about personal growth, a lot of times that can be subjective. I want to be a better person 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Great, great. I don't know that I can work with that. But right now, we have X amount of leads coming in, and we want to increase that by 20%. And we're willing to invest X, Y, and Z to be able to get that result. That's the kind of conversation I want to be able to have because marketing, and everybody has their own views, but I'm very much more interested in performance marketing than I am brand marketing. All of us can make cool things. We are a world of many creative people. But what's going to be the impact? That's what I'm always looking at. So anytime that I'm working with a customer, like we want to grow, great. That sounds awesome. Where are we now? What are the benchmarks? Do we even know that? Do we need to go in and implement
Right.
the right technology to understand where we are today so we know what 20% better looks like. So we always like to go very data driven in anything that we're doing, because data tells the story. And sure, data can be manipulated, but at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to say we want to increase our leads, our revenue, and our profit by X amount, and be able to look 6 months from now and see if we did it or we didn't, than if we
Sure.
say, hey, we want to grow as a company, and part of that is emotionally, and we want to grow up, and we want hard numbers. That's the world that we want to live in.
That's awesome. So the intent you're excuse me, the more intentional that you can be on that growth, the better. And I like what you said about performance versus branding, because there are a lot of people that, I mean, I think of branding, I don't know about you, Austin, but I think of branding as like something that Coke would want to do or Nike would want to do, these monster brands that just for whatever reason, want to grow that branding piece. And it's hard, excuse me, to have like a 2-person or 5-person, 10-person company that has that branding mentality and they're not really that dialed into the performance. So when you talk about performance versus branding, ROI is like a big thing that I always wonder about. And so when somebody says, I want a return on my investment for my marketing, what's kind of your response to that?
First off, I would say perfect. You came to the right place, because if we're going to do lead generation and we're going to work with you as an outsourced marketing department, then I understand the stakes. Either you grow or I go. And I want to be your
Yeah,
best friend for a really long time, because that's what my business is built on:
sure,
long-term
sure.
partnership. We help continue continue to grow. And so we're very, very much excited when somebody says, okay, how are we able to measure this? And going back to what I was saying before, first let's benchmark it. Where are we? Where do we want to go? What does 3x mean? How much are you paying attack? How much are you paying in advertisements? What other dollars do we need to be considering? Salespeople, whatnot. And like, let's really map out what 2, 3, 4, 5, 10x looks like from this investment, so that
Well,
everybody's clear. And from there, and then it gives, it's great on the team level too, because I say, guys, this is what we got to do. This is the mission at hand. Like,
yeah,
and so we always pride ourselves on being much more goal focused than scope focused. I know, sometimes it's easier for agencies to say, well, we're going to create an SEO program for you. We're going to focus on these 10 keywords. We're going to write you 4 blogs a month, and 6 months go by and they don't get the results you're looking for. But the agency goes, well, we did everything we said we were going to do.
sure.
I don't want to do that, because I think when you invest in a growth partner, what you really want is results. And how you get there might not be the exact same path that you thought it was going to be on day one. And that's part of marketing. That's part of living, right? I
Yeah.
was joking with this to somebody recently. Aren't we all just kind of A/B testing every single day and trying to figure out the best path forward, whether we're marketing or just living our lives?
Well, but I think though, like you said, and it's rare to find marketing people that will put an ROI on it, will talk about those types of things because when I owned my last business, we just figured that marketing was just like that necessary evil on your balance sheet that you had to do. Your profit, and loss and shows this marketing category, and here's money spent. And people are like, well, what did you get out of that? And we're like, well, I don't know. We're hoping, we hope again is the bad marketing strategy. So were you always this way, or how did this kind of work? I mean, you came out of corporate America. Were you never in corporate America? Kind of walk us through your journey to give us a context about this.
Absolutely. I am what I like to refer to as a pain in the butt entrepreneur, which means I was never going to be good at working for other people. I That is not me bragging. That is shame coming out of my mouth, that I can't, because I feel like I would have saved myself 10 years if I could have just apprenticed at the right place and then got on.
Sure.
But what I did was, I was in grad school in Chicago, and um, I got a internship at something called social media. And this is back in 2008. And I was using platforms like Twitter, but also platforms like Dig, things that don't even exist anymore. And you probably never thought were social media to begin with. And then I went and I became friendly with the person who oversaw SEO for the entire Tribune company, and I became his assistant and did another internship there. And through these two internships, I decided that I was ready to start a digital marketing company, which was, what I did. I moved
Yeah.
to New Orleans. I did some social media for some B2C retail. I did okay, but also recognized that I was just not really where I wanted to be. And so I moved to California in 2011, and I brought my agency, which was my four clients and that I worked on. And I had enough time that I went to the startup world. I worked for a company called Dog Vacay. They were a competitor Rover, but before Rover eventually acquired them. And I didn't even make it a whole year from there before I got let go, because I was that person who's like, I want to do this. I'm really excited, right? I want to do
Yeah.
this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And when you tell me no and you deflate, and then I got to go do some idea I know is not going to work, I don't really have that same gusto. I don't really be able to, I'm not able to bring that same leadership. And it really opened my eyes that, like, I want to control my destiny. And so I really doubled down on myself. And through that experience, I met a couple of guys who ran a web development company called Attack Interactive. And they looked at what I had and they said, wait a minute, we need this guy. We need his energy. We need his creativity. We need his ability to really elevate the customer experience. And I needed what they had:
Yeah.
structure. They had a real
Oh.
company. They used the calendar feature. They didn't wake up every day and go, what am I going to do today? And that marriage was really great. I merged my company almost 10 years ago, and we've collectively done very, very well post merger. But
Sure.
that was my journey, and yeah, it wasn't necessarily an easy one.
Well, and that's that. Thanks for sharing that, Austin. We have a lot of people that listen around the world that want to jump into being an entrepreneur, but it's like, what's my first step? And I always tell people, it's different for everybody. And again, Austin just proved it here because, he found out early on that he couldn't work for people and that he had to work for himself. And then he figured out how to make that work. So I love that journey. Were you, in that merger time, did you wonder if, like, oh my gosh, am I going to get along with these guys? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they like me? Are they not like me? I mean, people are getting nervous about having to kind of merge, and I just didn't know if you've had success stories there or if you guys struggled at early on or how that worked.
I think one of the reasons why it worked so well is because we started working on mutual clients together first.
Okay.
And so we were able to recognize, okay, these are the strengths. This is what this person brings to the table. This is what this person brings to the table. And through that, it became a lot more comforting. From the initial idea, I think happened in April, and it was the end of December when everything was signed, because it was just a couple ups and downs of looking at, okay, well, how do we handle this situation? You're dealing with a couple of people who are already business partners. Now you're going to be a third partner. What does that
Yeah.
look like? And so, the hesitations should be real, but I think what the opportunity you have at hand is to be able to figure out some way, shape, or form to try it before you buy it.
How do you do that? That's a great analogy. I mean, how do you do that in an entrepreneur world?
Well, I think when you're dealing with a merger, if you're doing it correctly, I think any relationship in life, like, both sides are bringing mutual value to one another.
Hmm.
You're able to do, to help out in one way, and they're able to help out in another. And so if those exist, and you have two businesses that exist, then you've got two customer bases that exist. And so I would look to the customer bases and go, okay, how can we see that if we bring on, what you're doing, how that can make our customer experience better, and
Yeah.
or can I go to your customers and make their experience better from what I bring to the table, and really from there be able to get, I always call it the talon theory, right? Get your talons in on everything, dig your heels in, and do your best and see if everything
Sure.
works out.
Wow, that's awesome. And so you guys are cruising along, life is good. And did you have that attack model at the right on the onset, or when did that kind of come in, the accountability and and those pieces. When did that come in for you guys into your business?
We adopted EOS in 2018. If your listeners are not familiar, the entrepreneurial operating system, it's based on a book called Traction by a gentleman named Gino Wickman. And we did really well with that because myself and my partner are very much extremes of these two archetypes that they outline in that, which is the visionary, which is the person who very much pushes everything forward, living in the future, and then there's an integrator who makes sure everything going on in the day to day is accountable to that vision. And I'm very strong on the vision, the enthusiasm. Let's go, go, go. And my partner is really good at being an integrator and saying, okay, guys, this is what we have to absolutely get done today. And then this is what we have to do tomorrow. And then the next day, very specifically, so that we can continue to follow the vision and grow. And being able to do that was very impactful for our organization. We've done it for 6 years now. We've grown every single year since we've adopted it. And it's just really helped. It really helps with some blind spots. Like for me, I used to go into a meeting at the beginning of the year, all hands. I'd throw on some big mantra. Here's what we're doing this year, yada, yada. And then I'd ask somebody about it 6 months later and they forgot the meeting ever happened.
Yeah,
And so like EOS teaches like these annoying repetitions of all of these things that
sure.
actually again get the traction that you're looking for.
Wow. Well, so here's a great one for you. So you're a visionary and your partner is an integrator. So we do a ton of work with DISC because we realize there's all these different personalities and the ideal team has the yin and the yang, like you just said. So Austin, you're the visionary. If your partners all would have been visionaries and there wouldn't have been an integrator in that mix, what do you think would have happened?
Oh, we had to run out of money in about half a year. I've never
Right?
seen an investment I'm afraid to make.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, what about vice versa? If there would have been all integrators and no visionaries on the team, what would have happened there?
I think it would have been really hard to get and obtain the right talent because I don't think there would be as much purpose, as well as there wouldn't be just a lot of energy. Everything would be a little bit more task oriented than purpose oriented.
Sure.
And I think it needs to be a little bit of balance of the both.
Yeah. And that's so powerful. And I think that's what is really, again, about for growth for people listening. I think I look at what team growth, we growth can come in a variety of different ways, but I just think that if you don't know your team, if you don't understand your team, just like you were talking about the customer experience, if you don't understand the customer experience, it's really hard to grow something that you don't understand. So, I'm just curious, on your end, did you guys know this at the beginning that you were a visionary, he was an integrator? Did you guys know that right up front, or did that take some time to learn?
Uh, it was funny. I remember it was a Father's Day. I guess it was probably 2018. We were about 2 months away from our first meeting with our implementer. He had sold us and he told us about all the books. And one of the ones was called Rocket Fuel. And this dissects that relationship between visionary and integrator. And
Okay.
I decided I was going to go on a hike that day in Santa Barbara. So I put it on. The I just put on the book on tape and was
Okay.
driving, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, this is like speaking to our relationship like in extremes. And like I
Yeah.
had to hear these things about my partner, but I was like, he has to hear a lot of these things about me because well, no, I mean, I love my partner, but a lot of times
Yeah.
I can go to meetings and I can just, improvise and get everybody excited. And so he also thinks that means I can manage people well. He
Yeah.
thinks that means like I should oversee all the clients because I could do that better than other people. And I'm, at the same time, I'm a terrible project manager. I can only manage high performers who get a ton of autonomy. And these
Yeah.
are just things you have to learn about each other as we grow. And so I was very grateful once I heard that. I got super excited about EOS because I thought, you know what, like we are these people. We are like extremes on these scales. Not everybody's that extreme on the scales. A lot of times somebody like sways 60% one way, 40% the other. We're
Yeah.
about 98% each in the polar opposite.
Well, we ask our guests to take a disc assessment just so that I have a better way to communicate with them, and you were kind enough to do it, and you are a high D, high I. So that means, you like to talk like me. We're both high D, high I people. You like results to get that stuff done. Low C and low D, I mean low S and low C basically means, to your point, like not a lot of detail. Project managing, yeah, I get bored really easy. So, I mean, knowing yourself like that, I gotta believe, Austin, that that really can help you add value to the team and know where your strength is going to be in that team. Do you feel like people ask you to do things that you're not good at, or does the team have a really dialed in idea of where your strengths are now?
I think we've got a pretty good idea about it now. I think I joke a lot. I've got pretty strong ADHD, so I call myself ADH Austin a lot. I know that I'm working on seven things at once when I should be working at one. But that's also, we know that as we tinker with them, one's going to become more dominant than the other, and that's going to lead us where we need to go. So I think people are very. I think for lack of a better way to say it, I think I trained everybody to understand the best way to work with me and where I'm really good and where I'm not good. And I always joke that time doesn't equal impact. And so I always say, like, if I can be impactful somewhere, give me 10 minutes with a client.
Yeah,
If anything, and that's another thing too. We always want the best client engagements we can have, but sometimes things don't necessarily go to plan. And so I want to be the first one to jump in and say, hey guys, if there's a big problem, it's beyond what you can do. First, I want to challenge it. Can you do it? Do you want to be the guy? Do you want to be the hero here? Because I
yeah,
want you to grow, and if you can do it, do it. But if you need me to be, I will come in and do it, because I can also live with the result if it doesn't go the way that we want to, a little bit
yeah,
better than somebody else can. So I do think, to your question, I think people work, I wouldn't say around me, but definitely play to my strengths. And we are in a position where I do feel like I manage the right people. I'm involved enough where I need to be involved. And I also very much believe that a great sign of leadership is being able to groom other leaders. So
yeah,
I do hyper delegate sometimes more than others would like, but it's, I don't know, it's really cool to me to watch people as they grow in their career and they're able to do
yeah,
things. And you know I don't need all the glory to be able to go and sell a deal. Awesome.
sure.
you know
Yeah.
but
There's a fine line between delegating because you think it's the right thing to do for the person and delegating because you don't want to do it. Because that's where I'm at. There's like that fine line, right, between those two. So, I love that piece. Before we go to break here, I just want to ask you a question because in your assessment, was there anything in there in your disc? Was there anything that stood out that either you were like, oh my gosh, that's totally me? I just love to get people's kind of first reactions to that, if there was anything that popped into your mind.
Well, I think depending on the page that you're reading and the analysis, you either feel really good about yourself or really terrible about yourself. So like you're reading all your positive traits and you're like, oh wow, yeah, you're really goal oriented and you really want to get the team going and getting achieving things. And you're like, yeah, that's right, I do want to achieve things. That's
Yep.
great. Then
Yep.
you start reading some of the things that are common. You crave recognition. If somebody's not going to support your goal, you don't really care about them, and you're kind of like, well, yeah, but I mean, don't say it out loud, man.
Right? Yep, exactly. Just keep it on the page. We don't need other people to know about this for sure. Well, and I just think it's so powerful, as you mentioned, number one, to learn more about yourself, but number two, to have your team learn about you as well. So I love that piece. So when we come back, I want to really dig into this growth being stuck in neutral. I want to give some practical helps for someone listening in that spot. So we'll be right back.
All right.
Welcome back. I'm honored to be hanging out with Austin LaRoche, CEO at Attack Interactive. And we've been kind of walking through his journey. And so I want to kind of catch up to now we're up to date here. And I want to just kind of talk to the person, Adam, that's listening right now that totally identified with that statement about they're admitting while they're driving, while they're working out, whatever they're doing, they're admitting that their growth is stuck in neutral. So I want to focus on the company. And I just want to, whether again, whether it's profit, whether it's sales, whether it's, customer acquisition, whatever that growth is, are there some things that you kind of share with people, some low-hanging fruit that you can share with somebody that would at least encourage them to do some of that growth that we've been talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I developed something I call the M2S framework. And it's the idea is about simplifying all of your marketing and sales and revenue generating activity, right? Because there's so many things you can do. There's, what if we try this? What if we try this? Let's throw the wall, see if it sticks. But at the end of the day, like I think you really need to be doing this a lot more intentionally. And so I try to simplify things. That's one of my gifts. And so I like to break it down and go, okay, for each of your different market segments, maybe you have different buyer personas, different ICPs, different industry, however you define your different market segments for each of those. What are you doing to attract prospects? How are you converting those prospects into opportunities? How are you closing those opportunities into customers? And then how are you delighting those customers? How are you doing it right now? And how can you do it a lot better moving forward? And so I challenge companies to tell me exactly what it is that they're doing tactically, creatively, who's doing what, who's doing this on marketing, who's doing this on sales, or is everybody aligned? Do you even know? And so the first thing I try and do, if we don't have all those answers, is we try and build, I always like to call it paint the promised land, right? Let's paint the promised land. Let's talk about, we've got this ICP that we really, really want to go across marketing and sales. What are we going to tactically do to attract these prospects? If they give us the time of day, what are we going to do to convert them into being able to get a demo or to be able to have a real sales call? What do we got to do there? Okay. A lot of times this is, on the digital side, this is having enough social proof on a landing page to make people go, wow, okay, these guys might be able to solve my problem. Cool. And then from there, what does our sales process look like? How people are interested? How are we getting them across the finish line? Where could that be better? And then, lastly, once once we have them on board, how do we make them love us so much that they never want to leave? And I think if we can really simplify that journey and look at how we're going to be able to do that across marketing and sales, then we've got purpose, we've got intent, we know what we're doing, and we know where we're going. And maybe not everything works, right? Maybe we put in a tactic like, hey, let's drive more leads through, let's say, like LinkedIn advertising. And, that tactic doesn't work. Well, you want to diversify what you're doing. You want to make sure that you have multiple, angles of which you can get your target in front of your target market and say, hey, this might
Sure.
be able to change your life. But, so anyway, that's how I try to simplify everything. So if you're in that, if you're feeling like you're in neutral, like go back to the strategy and see what you're doing at each of those stages. And then ask yourself, how can I do it better?
Well, and you bring up a really interesting point, Austin, that I want to make sure people get because I feel like a lot of the people in your space focus on the marketing side, and I heard some real intentionality on the sales side. So I always think in my simple mind, marketing gets the phone to ring, and then sales takes it once it rings, just purely from a simple handoff type thing. I'm hearing from you that you're not only getting the phone to ring for clients, but then you're also helping them once the phone does ring. Did I hear that right, or am I off on that?
Yeah, I think marketing and sales, they support each other at each step along the way, right? So let's start with that attract the prospect. Normally that's going to be marketing's job, right? They're going to get a message out to a prospect. However, whatever way digitally, they might, be doing commercials, whatever. Well, what's the best way to frame that message? In the old days, you had a bunch of guys in, Madison Avenue, and they'd pitch an idea, and if a sample size of 5 people on a leadership team liked it, they said yes, right? But nowadays, Why would marketing not go to sales and say, you're talking to customers every single day? What do they love
Yeah.
about our product? What do they love about our service? What do they
Yeah.
like? And then start crafting messages that way, right? And then you have salespeople who I love salespeople. They love to talk. They hate admin work, right? But we have so many data points that we can use. So what we have to do in marketing is we have to help simplify them, right? Show them how
Yeah.
to use the app on their phone where they can hit the microphone button, talk into the notes section of the CRM, and then we can get all the information that we need, right?
Sure. Yep.
Move somebody in a different deal stage, and then we can get the right message to those people by automating messages. So these two entities play together so much more than they ever used to. And I think that's a good thing. And I think this kind of shift from a sales department to a marketing department to both of them kind of being huddled into this revenue department is really, really providing a lot of a lot of growth on both sides because there's so much transparency now.
Are you seeing a lot of your people that you run into, kind of seeing marketing and sales kind of at odds with each other? It used to
I
be
mean,
that way, and I'm not sure if you're still seeing that.
historically, yes. And I think for companies that still silo those two departments, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I get in the middle of it, right? Like our company's driving all of these leads, but there's some
Yeah.
barrier. And sales says that, oh my gosh, we can't sell to these guys because of XYZ. And we say, well, what if we give them this message? And then it just becomes that battle of like, are you delivering the right leads, or are you able to close the good leads that we're sending you?
Yeah.
And that's not the world I want to be living in, right? I want to be living in a world where, hey, you guys are tied to more revenue, we're tied to more revenue. We're doing this. If you're saying that we're not able to get as many leads from this, what strategies do we need to enact to be able to drive more sales? And ultimately, I think that's an area where marketers might not want to hear this, but like marketing is more responsible to sales than sales is to marketing. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, you've got to close the deal. And,
Sure.
and I think there's historically been hostility for a lot of reasons. You got salespeople who have a quota. They're trying everything they can to actually get people to make the decision to sign on the dotted line to increase revenue. And marketing's out making pretty videos and heading home at 5 p.m. and not pounding the phones. And
Yep.
they've had less responsibility. And I think now we have enough ways to be able to measure so that we can put that same immense pressure on marketing and sales. So it's easier to feel like you're in the, you know, you're working together in the trenches together because you both have that same pressure and you're both tied to the same results.
Sure. I think the only thing that is more combative than sales and marketing are sales and operations, right? I mean, they can't stand each other. And I'm a sales guy, so I was born and raised just like you in sales. And then you got your buddy that's an integrator, and it's just like, oh, dude, really? And then he uses the S word. Man, when those guys pull out that S word, it really irritates me. And the S word, for those that you don't know, it's spreadsheet, right? And it's just like, man, you want me to start tracking this, and I have such a, it's like, oh, I don't get it, but I get it, obviously. But again, I think it's really interesting if you are listening and you right now do silo your marketing and your sales and you try to keep them away from each other. I feel like you're missing a huge opportunity there because, like you just said, Austin, your salespeople are sitting with your champions. They're sitting with your clients. They're sitting with your prospects. They're the front line. They know better than anybody what I believe what is needed. And do you see still a lot of silos? Is that still pretty common for you? Or are you starting to see those lines blurred a little bit?
We're seeing the lines blur a lot, and I'll tell you why. The technology makes it easier than ever. If you use a platform like HubSpot, you can go into a contact record. You can see all the marketing emails that a contact actually reads, the pages on the website that they went to, see when a
Sure.
salesperson contacted them last. And so marketing and sales can make much more strategic decisions with prospects based on how they're engaging with all of the marketing and sales material that are out there. So I think that has like been the biggest game changers. The technology makes it very, very transparent on who's doing what they're saying. And sure, sales and marketing have to cut, well, in some cases, have to log some of this information. A lot of it is automated, which is really cool too. But now you understand who's doing what. So if you want to say, if you're a salesperson and you see that somebody read a marketing email about one feature of your product or service, then the next time you give them a call, check in. What a great thing to start talking about, right? And you got that
Yeah.
consumer intelligence. So
Yeah.
I would say the technology makes it so much easier for these two to come together.
And it's crazy how some of us old school guys and girls just kind of miss that, you know? I mean, like if they were looking at a page on my website or they were looking at this or they were looking at that, I get so excited that sometimes I just forget to even lock that in. So I love that that's out there. You mentioned HubSpot. So for somebody that maybe isn't familiar with that, can you kind of fill us in on what role that plays in sales and in marketing?
Wow, where to start on HubSpot? So
Sorry to put you on the spot on that one.
no. It's more like HubSpot 101. It's this tool that was built originally as a marketing automation platform. And as
Okay.
they've built it, to me, it's kind of like the ultimate revenue operations tool for definitely for mid-market and small biz. I think for enterprise, it's really great, but it is a little bit, it's not as robust as something like Salesforce. But within HubSpot, if I'm a company, this is an area for me to utilize CRM features to be able to, have all of my contact and company records, my deal records, so I can see my pipelines. I also have marketing automation available to me. So if somebody's in one pipeline stage and then they go to close one, I can automate a message to get the Panda doc signed right then and there. And then once the Panda doc signed, I can automate an onboarding email. So there's a lot of those things, but I think at what the most powerful thing about the HubSpot engine is that it can really showcase how all people are coming to you, their experience through marketing and sales, and then all of that can be measured with the right reporting as well. So if you set something up right, then those questions of like attribution, like, okay, well, we realize that they had 7 marketing touch points, and we sent 7 emails. They opened all of them. Sales talked to them twice. They got them, and so you're able to kind of see,
Mm, sure.
just a transparency to your customers, your prospects, their journey that is very, very powerful.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's gone are the days of just calling and leaving messages, right? I mean, that's part of it, but there's just so many more ways to touch point a client and a prospect. So as we start to land the plane today, Austin, you talked about attracting a prospect and you talked about, this path there. For somebody that's listening that maybe doesn't, they're looking at that path and they're seeing blank, they're struggling with that. Is that something that you guys do at Attack Interactive, is kind of be a coach and help them with that journey and come alongside them?
Yeah, I'll be honest, there's not too many things I get my hands dirty with anymore, but consulting on that growth journey is like my favorite thing to do. I get so much
Sure.
energy out of being able to help somebody and to be able to go, okay, all right, we're stuck in neutral. We want to grow. Let's create the benchmark. Let's understand where we are. Let's understand the promised land. And then now let's work backwards. I'll tell you all the things I know about marketing and sales, and we're going to
Yeah.
get you where you want to go. So
Wow.
that gives me my energy, being able to help build those strategies for my clients.
Wow. So again, if you're listening and you are stuck in neutral, that's probably a point to consider. And we'll get Austin's information out in a second. But one last question before we get to that. What would your tip of the day be for somebody listening? Maybe it's something we covered, maybe
Oh
it's
wow.
something that's burning on your heart. But what would your tip of the day be for somebody listening today?
Um, I recently heard somebody say this, and I've tried to incorporate it into my life. Said I'm making a conscious decision to only be around people with positive energy. Now, that doesn't mean like you're buddy who makes a lot of funny jokes and can see things analytically, you want to stop being friends with. But
Yeah.
as somebody who loves like getting excited, I just think passion's contagious. And I love when I'm around good energy. I can't stand nervous energy.
Yeah.
Negative energy sometimes has its place. Nervous energy doesn't work for me. Um, but like I very much like kind of that improv mentality, like that yes and. I want to be around people like, oh, cool idea. And what if we do this? And what if we do this? Because it's just a much more enjoyable way to go through your day. I mean, at the
Yeah.
very least, right? So find the
Cool.
good energy and harness it yourself.
That's great. I tell you, somebody, I can't remember who it was. I'm sure you probably know somebody that would say something like this. They said, "You're the sum of the top five people that you spend the most time with," you know? And I think about that, and it's just like, wow, we limited number of minutes in a day. And so why would we want to be hanging out, like you said, with the negative people and with that negative energy that just kind of, not only do you have to fight through that, but you're fighting through it just to get back to square one. You haven't even elevated yet. So I totally get that. I appreciate you sharing that. So for people that are listening, Austin, that want to walk through the growth in neutral part that we discussed today, maybe they want to talk about your M2S framework. What would the best way for people to connect with you be?
Head over to attackinteractive.com, atakinteractive.com. Ping us. We've got phone numbers, forums, calendars. We got multiple ways to get in touch there. If you want to learn more, make sure you tell us that you heard about us on the Positive Polarity podcast, and we will, we'll make sure we'll give you what we call Dave's deal.
Uh-oh.
And
Don't give him Dave's deal. That's only for Dave. Austin, we had this discussion, dude. You're only supposed to give that to Dave, not to Dave's listeners. But now you got it out there. So give it away. What do you got?
Yeah, I'd love to be able to do to help out any way that we can. We'll be able to give you a free audit of all your marketing activity if you hear from, if you tell us that you came from Positive Polarity podcast. Love to give you a little audit and kind of at least help you course correct so you know what direction to start walking in.
Wow, that's awesome. And that's usually so hard for people to do. So if you're listening right now and this is like burning inside, you really want to do it. I just want to encourage you to stay outside of your comfort zone. Jump in and give, a call to Attack Interactive. Jump on attackinteractive.com. And the best part is you go to their website and then you find their people and then you hover your mouse across each person's face and something shows up. I'm just going to leave it at that because I was like, holy cow, this is a crazy cool way to do it. Excuse
That's
me.
fun. It's been a while since we updated those. I feel like I should update that now.
I don't
Always
know. They
good for
look pretty darn good. You had me that I thought they were just updated. So you had me on that one. So again, for the listeners, we close today. Rather than jump into your next activity, if you really are feeling that your growth is not where you want it to be, maybe it's not in neutral. Maybe it's only in first gear or second gear. Maybe it's not where you want it to be. Why would you not jump on a call, with the Tech Interactive and check in with Austin and just explain where you are? There might be some simple little course corrections that can propel you into places of 3x or 5x or even 10. Maybe you've never thought of, maybe you've never been there. But I just don't want you to jump into your next activity because it's super easy to just hear podcast after podcast after podcast. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with all the other podcasts. But Austin hit you between the eyes, and he's given you the opportunity to really do something different with your company. If you choose to stay at the level you're at, that's fine. Don't get mad at him, and sure don't get mad at me because we gave you the
it.
opportunity to do that. So thank you so much, Austin, for hanging out. I can't wait to keep learning from you. Excuse me, and make sure and let me know when you do finally change those videos and those pictures because there's some really cool stuff that you got on your website. So again, thank you for all you're doing and can't wait to keep learning from you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave.